Unemployment continues to affect the Charlotte community, and now new changes in state unemployment law are making the problem worse. How will that affect our neighbors who are hurting most? What are United Way agencies doing about it? We'll discuss that and more today.
Together as one, we'll be stronger in every way.
Hello and welcome to Living United, a show about how our community can be the change for those most in need. I'm Ann McNeil, United Way volunteer and manager of corporate citizenship and corporate affairs for IBM. Today, I'm joined by two representatives of two agencies, and we'll hear from a third agency in a new video that we'll show you in just a few minutes. My two guests are Leah Kane, employment attorney with Legal Services of Southern Piedmont, and Harold Rice Jr., Chief Program Officer, Community Link. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Interesting topic we're going to cover, but before we get there, what I'd like you both to do, if you don't mind, give us an overview of your agencies and also specifically about what both of you do at your agencies. Leah, if you want to start.
Sure. I'm an attorney with Legal Services of Southern Piedmont. We're a small nonprofit law firm and legal services agency. I work in the Consumer Protection and Employment Division. We cover a variety of areas for low-income people in the civil arena. So, for example, we have consumer protection and employment. We have a low-income tax clinic. We have an HIV/AIDS clinic.
Oh, wow.
We do immigrant justice, including domestic violence issues. We have a family support division, which includes health care, benefits, Medicaid, Social Security, disability, things like that. We have legal services for the elderly, Veterans Legal Services Project. We also do a lot of pro bono coordination and outreach, getting other attorneys in the community to volunteer their services and give them training, and also do a lot of community education and outreach on all of these areas in the community.
Great. Looking forward to hearing more about what you're doing in unemployment. Harold, if you could tell us a little bit more about Community Link and your role.
Yes, Community Link, our mission is to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing for individuals and families in the community. And so our job is to provide housing solutions, and we do that through two of our main programs, the Homeless to Housing program, and we also do that with the home ownership and home ownership program with pre-purchase and foreclosure counseling. We also have a financial literacy program that adds value to both of those programs because financial literacy is the mainstream of those two programs for budgeting purposes.
Excellent. And what do you do?
My role, I like to say it as a trash man, pretty much. I'm the Chief Program Officer, so I'm over all of the programs in the agency. So I make sure that the programs, we're meeting our outcomes and see the need in the direction which we need to go.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, Leah, I'd like to start with you today because obviously in North Carolina right now especially, unemployment, a lot going on in that area. As of July 1st, thousands of people lost their unemployment benefits. And can you give us a little bit of background, why those changes happened and what's going on?
Well, I'll try to.
Yeah.
It's sort of big picture. The unemployment insurance system has been in place in our state and most of the country since the Depression. It's an economic stabilization for large numbers of people becoming unemployed, providing some level of cushion, a percentage of their former wages for a certain amount of time, and also protecting the community so people can continue to pay for their housing, car, food, necessities that have children and families. And these are workers that lose their positions through no fault of their own.
Right.
It's a system where the employer pays in continuously throughout good times and bad.
Right.
Unfortunately, we've had some reductions in the past during the good times, and then in 2008, when across the country we were hit, we were depleted with funds and had to take a loan from the federal government in order to continue paying our benefits. There weren't funds in the trust fund, like many states. Just this year, at the beginning of the legislative session, the legislature passed a bill right away making some significant and permanent changes to the system. And one of those was to drastically cut back on the benefits, the maximum benefits, which are tied to what the wages of
what
the
your
worker
wages
were.
Yeah, right. Sure.
That resulted in what you were talking about, then us having to voluntarily sort of push back on what otherwise would have been federal emergency funds that throughout the country, states with long-term unemployment problems
Right.
have been getting. So all of those people who were receiving the federal unemployment benefits lost them as of July 1st. Those are the emergency benefits that they would have otherwise had until January. That's actually unrelated
Yeah.
to the idea of paying back the debt. That wasn't money that we were having to pay back. That was
Right.
federal money coming in.
Yeah.
So 70,000 long-term
Wow.
North Carolinians dropped from that.
And can you give us a real-world example of
Sure.
how people are being affected? I mean, you know, a scenario?
A couple of other sort of the changes that happened were not only the amount of benefit changes, but also a serious, I think we have now the shortest amount of benefits weeks available in the country. We have still one of the highest unemployment rates in the country.
Right.
And so now the maximum amount of time is 20 weeks. It used to be much longer.
Right.
We've also restricted the numbers of people who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own that would be eligible. So for example, there's the percentage of hours that you're cut. If you're cut, you can be cut up to 50% of your hours and still not be eligible anymore. It used to be 20%. There is a family care and, if you have, for example, we had a client last year who worked at a 24-hour check cashing shop.
Right.
And worked day shifts or in the afternoons, and then was switched to a couple of night shifts. She's a single mom, had children.
yeah.
She did make arrangements for on weekends to be able to work the night shift and had a family member caring for her children. New manager came in a couple years later and switched her to several nights a week, and she couldn't find all-night daycare, so it was sort of a forced quit.
Right.
She was eligible previously for unemployment. Now she won't be. Likewise, people that have either themselves or an immediate family member, disability or health reasons that they are out of a job, those people are now no longer eligible for unemployment. So we've really reduced the numbers of people, we've reduced the hours the weeks that they could get it, and we've reduced the benefits. So
and then you get into, so then they lose their job, and many of these jobs come with insurance, correct?
Right.
And you mentioned the health care, you know, that piece of it. So it's much larger. Can you go into a little bit about all the pieces?
Sure. Exactly as you said, I actually do a lot of work in the consumer protection and housing
Right.
retention area in conjunction with Community Link and other agencies. So for example, we have a number of clients that have lost their job, they're actively looking, they might be in a retraining program, their unemployment benefit ends, all of a sudden they can't pay their mortgage, they're going into foreclosure, or they can't pay their rent, they're facing eviction and homelessness, they've got maybe a car payment, they don't have the health insurance anymore, they can't buy the food. So it's also, we're estimating, or not our firm, but statewide,
Right.
The dropping of the long-term uninsured, $700 million between now and the end of the year, is taken out of the North Carolina economy, and that'll be on an annual basis moving forward. So it's a big effect. A ripple
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah. And to your point, that makes decisions for individuals hard to pay.
Right.
Either do I pay medical costs,
Exactly,
car payment,
right.
Daycare, child care, which
Right.
is expensive today.
I'm going to maybe not take my medicine
Correct.
so that I can do it. But then in the long run, that's going to be,
Correct.
worse.
Correct. What is my immediate need today? That's
Right,
what they think
right.
of.
For those who have been unemployed, obviously the longer you're unemployed, sometimes it can be harder to find work. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is there a bigger struggle the longer you're unemployed? I mean, and if your benefits are running out and then you're still unemployed, I mean, vicious cycle somewhat?
I think absolutely, and Harold can probably talk as much as I can about this. It is. I think right now we're now going to have a lot more people without benefits that are continuing to search for positions, elderly people, middle-aged people. One of the reasons the emergency funds were enacted by Congress is because the average time for unemployment was over 6 months.
Right.
In our state, for every one job available, we have 3 unemployed people. So we're pushing people away from that, over the financial cliff, and we don't yet have the jobs available for them. And so you start moving into crisis mode.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of jobs, we're going to take a look at a video here. We're going to switch gears a little bit. One United Way agency that helps people get back to work is Goodwill. We took a tour of Goodwill last week. Let's see what they're doing to help people find employment.
So the mission of Goodwill is all about helping people be successful in the world of work. But most people think of Goodwill as that place where you take your stuff or where you purchase other people's stuff. The true mission is changing lives through the power of work, and specifically that means providing job training, job placement, and job creation. We use the expression changing lives through the power of work, and we believe at Goodwill that work really does have power. And you know, a lot of this, particularly before the recession, kind of took work for granted. When you're able to work and provide for yourself and your family, you don't really see the importance of that. But if you think about it, work is really critical to how we see ourselves, our sense of self-esteem, and it's critical in being able to provide, not only for ourselves, but for our family, and then be able to contribute to the community. The people we serve at Goodwill come really from all walks of life. It may be somebody who has been displaced by a plant closing or a downsizing, maybe somebody with a disability or physical, intellectual. Could be somebody who's on public assistance or has a criminal record or perhaps doesn't have a high school diploma or GED. The one common denominator is we serve people who are unemployed or underemployed. So lots of times we have to work with folks to develop a career plan, and that career plan may mean a transitional job. It may mean short-term transitional employment with an area employer or with Goodwill. It could be working in our temporary staffing agency so that they can develop and have some income while they're still working either with Goodwill or one of our partners in developing higher level skills and certifications that allow them really to get that job that's going to lead to a family sustaining wage, being able to break that cycle of poverty and dependency. It's not a quick process. Well, we didn't get into this cycle of poverty and dependency easily, and it's going to take a lot of focused effort, not just by Goodwill, but by other agencies to help people get to a place where they can truly break out of that cycle. You know, the expression goes, it takes a village, and that's certainly true when it comes to providing services to individuals. There's no one agency that can provide all the services, so that we are constantly partnering with different organizations in the community. Yeah, as we look back on just last year, we served over 14,000 individuals with barriers to employment. And that was a significant accomplishment for us, particularly when you consider that pre-recession we were serving about 6,000 people a year. So we have really ramped up our services over the years, and we've really increased the level of intensity of our services. Last year we also placed 1,800 individuals with area employers, and through our retail and other enterprises, we generated over 1 million hours of payroll for individuals with barriers, and that translated into $12 million in wages and benefits just last year. We want people to continue to donate clothing and other household items. People can donate their time. They can volunteer at Goodwill, or other United Way agencies are always looking for volunteers to help expand and leverage our capacities. We're looking for employers, people who are willing to consider hiring one of our graduates, either as a regular employee or perhaps they have some temporary staffing needs, and we can provide those resources as well. So there are a variety of ways that people can help, and certainly their contributions annually to the United Way campaign help not only Goodwill, but our partner agencies, many of whom are supported by the United Way.
Leah and Harold, while you two may not directly work with Goodwill, or you may, obviously your agency supports some of the same people that you all are supporting. Could you talk a little bit about, maybe give an example of how you all would work with Goodwill?
Yeah, so I can do that. We partner with Goodwill on several efforts. One, we help individuals stay in the housing program. So sometimes they lose their job while they're in housing, and we need a referral partner to send them to, because that's a scope of work that we don't do. We are in the housing business, and Goodwill can provide that job readiness skill set that they need. And so while they're in our program getting tenant education, we can refer them to a partner to help them with other skills that they may need. So we always
which is excellent, because they're going to be more likely to keep that house if you're getting into a home, right?
And we have that experience. I have a client right now went through the Goodwill job training program, got a permanent position, is now an ability to save her family home, her father's home, who passed away, and take it on after save it from foreclosure. So Goodwill has been a wonderful resource for a lot of our clients.
Right, their training is incredible.
Exactly.
They have an excellent reputation.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, Harold, you talk about trying to get the homeless into housing, but if they don't have a job, how can they possibly have a home?
Exactly. It costs, and today, you know, to have a 3-bedroom house or apartment, the fair market rent is about a little over $1,000. I think $1,032.
Right.
So there you go. You know, and the minimum wage really doesn't sustain that, and you need a sustainable wage, and we need to create affordable housing.
Right.
In order to do that. And so permanent housing with a permanent subsidy is one of the solutions that you'll have with some of the workforce that we have, and our workforce are could be teachers, it could be service workers, and they're earning a wage, and they have child care, and they have expenses as well. But the housing cost is they can't. HUD says pay 30% of your gross income, but they can't afford that without a subsidy. So they must be with a job readiness program. If they're not working, they need some type of skill set, Central Piedmont or something, in order to keep that housing.
And I apologize if I ask you a question you can't answer here, because this just popped into my head. Is the housing in Charlotte, is our housing market more expensive than, I'm going to say our region, than other parts of the country? Less, more?
And I smile because I always say, Charlotte is affordable, and I say that jokingly.
Right.
It is not affordable to the workforce, the working poor, if you will.
Right. Regardless of whether it's an affordable market for most people.
It's a renters market now.
Right.
It's a renters market now, and so rents are up, and so but wages aren't up for our population, the low to moderate income.
I see.
Correct.
I see.
Correct.
Okay, well that's good to know. You talked about housing subsidies. They're not just for the unemployed, correct?
Correct. These subsidies are for the working individuals that are working, that are homeless as well. Not homeless literally on the street, more so the episodic homeless, episodes of homelessness. And so they need some type of burst, and it is our job to give them that upfront cost, because what we find is hard for individuals to get into the apartment, to get into the house. That's application fee, security deposit, first month rent could be upwards $2,000.
Or credit checks for that matter.
Correct. We pull a credit check, tri-merge credit check, and a criminal background as well. So we know what we're facing with this customer, and we can be an advocate for them when we go to that landlord.
Right. And how? So when they come to you, you're gonna walk them through the steps whether they would qualify for subsidies. Correct.
Correct. That is correct.
So you're the first stop almost on this road of, unfortunately, not having a home.
That's correct. That's correct. The good part about it, that our program is they come in and do an assessment with a master's level social worker. And so if there are other needs, which there probably are, they can address those and get wraparound services, maybe something with legal aid.
Or other organizations.
Other organizations. United Way is definitely want to partner with other agencies.
Right.
And so we'll get them linked up with any other wraparound services that we have.
Yeah.
And so, and get them into a safe, decent, and affordable place.
You also talked about that you all do financial counseling. And can you talk a little bit about what that, how long are they in the counseling? What all does it, I mean, is it very basic financial counseling? Is it what they're going to need to be successful in being a homeowner?
Right. Well, with the financial counseling piece, it is a piece where there's a third party that's looking at the lender's documents. And so we want to make sure that, you know, they say buyer beware.
Right.
We want to make sure that they have a fixed rate mortgage, and that they're not in a balloon or an adjustable mortgage, because most of our customers that come through trying to purchase a home,
they're going to go the balloon way, just because they can afford whatever they're going to get to the payment they can afford at the moment, right?
Exactly. And we need to get them in a fixed rate, because their income is not going to they're not going to have gainful income as much. So we want to make sure that they're in a house that they can afford, and they won't be house poor when they move in.
Right.
And I was just going to jump in. Sometimes it's also a situation with Community Link or our office and other agencies that a person is sort of steered toward perhaps the balloon payment or a more expensive loan when actually they would qualify for a better loan. So, and it's complicated to go through those documents. So.
One thing about our counselors, our home ownership counselors, when they prepare a customer, that customer knows how much they can truly afford. So it's
which is what you want.
Exactly.
You don't want to,
it helps the lender, it helps the realtor.
Right.
Because who makes the money at the end of the day? The
Right.
realtor and the lender make money off that customer. So
Right.
we want to make sure that they are aware that they can only afford a certain amount.
Sure, yeah, yeah. Well, because we all know when we have qualified, for those of us that are homeowners, they give you this amount, but you know, you have to be smart about it and you have to really think about what can I truly afford.
Correct.
And you're right, that counseling is so imperative for them to really understand that. That's great. You know, we like to look at, as we were saying earlier, it's like a three-legged stool, right? You've got your you know, your job, you've got your house, you've got your medical bills. If one of those falls, they all fall. Can you talk a little bit? You gave some examples, but can you give some examples of what happens? And
Yeah, what happens is decision time. What's present? What's the immediate need today?
Right.
Is my child sick? I don't have money to send them to the doctor, as well as pay my rent or my mortgage. And so they make a decision. And so depending on the need, they triage the need. These customers are savvy. They are survival of the fittest.
Right.
And so it can impact in a major way some type of three-legged stool. So now, if you know that the state has moved up to move evictions up to 10 days, if they don't pay their rent, you know, they'll be out in a shorter period of time. And now that will put a logjam possibly into the shelters. So.
yeah, and we've done shows recently with some of our partners in the shelter business, and it never goes down. The numbers never go down,
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
and
unfortunately.
One thing that's important, of course, to remember is with all these people now coming no longer eligible for the cushion of unemployment. and
Right.
they're moving; those stool legs are coming out more quickly, and
Yeah.
and
'Cause
agencies.
it's what, 20 weeks, you said? That's 5 months.
the maximum, and that it's
Yeah.
tied to the unemployment rate, right?
Yeah.
And so, different agencies get more people coming in, and, you know, we have foreclosure, so it pushes everything. It affects everyone, whether you personally face a job loss or not. The community, you know, businesses don't have that money coming in from the person otherwise spending money at the business.
Yeah.
Agencies get stressed. So,
It impacts the whole.
right.
Harold, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the other agencies you all partner with?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear just some scenarios of, you know, you have a person coming in and then some of the different ways you're partnering with some of the agencies.
Right, yeah. So the Veterans Association Administration, we partner with the Veterans Administration. We have several grants now that focus on homeless veterans. And so we'll get calls or referrals from the VA to house their homeless veterans. Communities and schools. We have families that are tied to the school system. And so we
Right.
try to partner, hey, the communities and schools say, hey, this child is mine and the customer is yours. Let's partner.
Right.
And so we partner on that effort. Here again with Goodwill, going back to the volunteer tax assistance.
Right.
They have a tax site for us, and so individuals that make $51,000 or less can get their taxes prepared at no cost. And so that's a way of partnering with those communities.
Right, right. Leah, you know, returning back to our earlier discussion, what is Legal Services trying to achieve in Raleigh? What are y'all doing at the state level, you know, from an advocacy point of view behind the scenes right now?
Well, this was one of the first things passed when the legislature opened, and we did advocate against it, along with a number of other agencies. There are still some things being reopened because we're apparently not in compliance with a number of the federal rules regarding unemployment, so there may be some tweaks, and we're continuing to advocate to perhaps shift some of these long-term permanent changes that have been made. But, you know, unfortunately, it was somewhat sweeping legislation, not without a lot of participation that was passed. So we're continuing to do that now, and will in the future as well as getting the word out about.
Well, and what can individuals do? Are there things that we can do?
Contact your legislatures, contact
Yeah.
the governor. As far as the specific legislative changes that have passed, and get involved. Recognize that this is going to be difficult statewide and community-wide.
Well, you had said earlier about the 20 weeks is the max. So, I mean, how are those formulas set up? Do you know?
It's based upon, and I don't have it's based upon the unemployment rate in the state. And
So it has nothing to do with your length of employment or the amount you make?
No.
The length of time has nothing to do with
No.
it? Interesting.
I think that, in fact, this morning, I think that, or at some point today, the current rate, it has been 8.8% in North Carolina, will be announced. I don't know if that'll shift or not. If it goes down slightly, it may shift us into an even
But it will
shorter
never go
time.
over 20 based on the new 20 weeks based
Not
on the
way
new
it's
rules.
structured right now, that's my understanding.
Right.
Right.
And
And we've also, limited it ourselves, at least for the next 6 months, and for anybody accessing. North Carolina is the only state in the country that's done that, to access these federal emergency funds. Congress extended them to January. So other states where people are eligible for the funds are still receiving some. So that's something. We're the only state in the country to have done that.
Interesting. Harold, any parting thoughts, any last question, or any last information you want to share with the viewing audience
Just
about your organization?
Yeah, we're an organization that's here to help,
Right.
whether it's with homelessness, whether it's with individuals trying to buy a home or keep individuals in their home from foreclosure, or the financial literacy program and the
Do you
free
use
text.
volunteers in any of your
We
programs?
do. We use volunteers for the financial coaching program.
Okay.
And so that's volunteer driven,
Right.
as well as the tax preparing sites. We use volunteers.
Right.
I volunteered myself.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's a wonderful experience. And so we just want to get the word out with that, because we don't want people to be taken advantage of.
Right,
Because they only have a
absolutely.
limited amount of income anyway.
Right.
So we
right.
want to make sure that they get their tax prepared for free.
Good, good. Well, I thank you both for being here today. And thank you so much for your time you invest in the community to those most in need. To our viewing audience, if you want to know more about how to be a change in your community, please visit the website shown on your screen. And if you're a member of our viewing audience who needs help, please call 211. 24 hours a day, dialing 211 will connect you to a referral specialist who can help you find services such as food, housing, unemployment, and more. I'm Ann McNeil. Thank you for living united.